What was loved by poor people until rich people ruined it?
Comic-cons used to be pretty affordable, and you could chat with celebrities for a while. Now they are a huge extravaganza, with multiple levels of admission and VIP access and VIP seating. Pictures and autographs with bigger celebrities can cost a pooload, and you wait in multiple lines and are rushed through it. When I went, pre-COVID, I normally just buy art. Those folks are usually not super busy and will often sign stuff for free, unless they are big dudes like Frank Miller.
I went to New York Comic Con a while back and it was beyond chaotic. Hours of lines just to shake an actor's hand and have them sign something. I got a picture with Stan Lee and got to have a 30-second convo with him, but it set me back $100 and I had to wait in line for 2 hours. Anime cons aren't quite as insane yet. Last one I went to before COVID, the vast were all just walking around, no problem. All the panelists were super easy to find outside of their panels and such. Though given how mainstream anime's gotten through TikTok and such, I'm sure they'll be the same soon enough.
Yeah, I don't think voiceover actors in general will be hoarded like mainstream actors. I remember I was able to chat up Spike from Cowboy Bebop and his wife the Major from Ghost in the Shell.
Every little cool mountain town in the American West.
Move in, build their $1 million mansion, and spend the next decade complaining about how the internet is spotty, the electricity goes down during blizzards, and mountain lions keep killing their Shih Tzus. I've seen it so many times.
Yup, I live in one. Bunch of rich people show up and buy up a bunch of homes to rent out as Airbnbs, which ends up causing a housing crisis. I understand that $1,200 a month for a studio isn't a lot in some parts of the country, but for our small overpopulated town, it's kind of a lot.
Farmers markets. Used to be cheap when I was younger. Now it's a hipster's paradise and expensive as heck.
Living near the coast used to be a poor people thing a long time ago.
My grandfather bought a house on Cape Cod when he retired from being an airline mechanic in the late 60s. He wasn't poor, but he sure as hell wasn't rich, and a normal middle-class person wouldn't be able to do that today. Even if you inherit a house free and clear, the property taxes will eat you alive if you aren't rich.
My grandparents had a summer home in Door County, Wisconsin that was right on the water. Without telling anyone else they sold it because, who's gonna want some crummy old cabin? The land is worth millions today.
The nice parts of the coast were always nice. It's just that back in the day there used to be a pooty part of the coast where the watermen lived too. Waterfront property is the ultimate finite resource. Population keeps going up, but we're not making any more land, aside from the UAE. I'm sure someone already mentioned this, but camping. It used to cost close to nothing to reserve a campsite. Some are still cheap, but now they've gone all bougie and some sites charge you ridiculous fees to pitch a tent in the woods. Same with music festivals in the forests. People would go to get away from bullpoo societal hierarchies and enjoys music and self-expression. Then they got all mainstream and it lost its original meaning, think Burning Man.
I remember camping with my dad in British Columbia in the 90s. We'd stick with the provincial parks where you basically got trees, a picnic table, a fire ring, a communal water spigot, and an outhouse. You'd show up, pick an empty spot, then the caretaker would come around in the evening and collect $9 per night. Several years we'd managed to bump into the same people, like the Dutch couple that would make a month-long trip across Canada every July. One of our favorite parks. Link had only 9 small sites backing onto Arrow Lake, suitable for tenting or a camper. If it was full they had a big grass field for overflow and you'd hope for a spot to open the following day. During a rainstorm one evening a couple other kids taught me how to play MTG. Nowadays there's a reservation system for provincial parks. Many parks are fully booked the day that reservations open in March. They charge $6 per night for the reservation on top of the $30 per night camping fee. Those 9 original sites at our favorite park were cleared to make way for showers and flush toilets, and they built 75 new sites that are large gravel pads suitable for big RVs, not so much for tenting.
Oh man, that sucks. When it comes to the outdoors, I miss how it used to be.
Came here to say this. I grew up camping with my family, middle class with an old tin can camper, best memories of my childhood. Now I work in a campground seasonally, 4 years now, and I can't even tell you what's happened to camping. Expensive, gaudy toy haulers everywhere. I have seen a large flat screen TV sitting on a picnic table, turned on, using campground water to fill a hot tub, satellite dishes, people cutting tree branches so it didn't scratch their six-figure RV as it tried to squeeze into a small campsite. The list goes on. Theatre used to be the entertainment for the masses, and now it's ridiculously expensive and inaccessible to most people.
It's killing theatre and opera. Too expensive for young people to go, so they don't start going regularly when they have more money. Theatre is eating its seed corn.
Yes. Also, the seating has changed. In Shakespearean times, the poor people would be in the front and center in standing room only, and the rich would be up high, and positioned on the sides so they could hear the play better.
Vinyl collecting. It was a dead cheap to get into industry as a hobby. Now come and get your $50 RSD Special Jizz Splatter Chet Baker EP.
Similarly, old video game collecting. It used to be when a new generation came out, people would unload their old systems and games cheaply. Now, the Super Mario NES cartridge that went for 50 cents in a yard sale is now going for $50 or more.
For the love of God, don't go and look up an old Funko Land price guide.
I'm going to be laughing with my CD collection when they become retro cool and spike in price in 20 years.
Podcasts. The number of amazing podcasts that have been ripped off by celebrities who are so out of touch with the average person's daily experiences is disgusting. They are so starved for attention they have to take over any discussion that's happening.
I don't remember which one, but an established comedian said he makes more money for a 1-hour podcast than a month of headlining Friday and Saturday night shows. So he and his comedian friends just take turns on each other's podcasts, just bullpooting with each other, and apparently people eat it up.
Creating YouTube channels. Edit, thanks for the awards, guys.
The worst part of this is that they all use the same format. Vlogs. 50 different camera cuts in a span of 2 minutes, clickbait titles and thumbnails.
Corporate YouTube channels are so disgusting. The massive amount of companies taking over a site for individual creators is really heartbreaking.
Sewing and sewing supplies. The new machines are plastic garbage, and since it's become a hobby rather than for the average person, the patterns after the 70s use way too much fabric.
The Champion brand. I remember Goodwill and Walmart selling their Champion stuff for cheap. Now it's designer, and it costs so much more now. SMH. Edit. I'm so glad that other people know what I'm talking about. This was my first comment after making a Reddit for myself. Also, designer is a very strong word. It's more in trend and popular. It's not as big as Michael Kors and Steve Madden, but it's difficult to find a Champion sweater for less than $50 minus 100 plus when it used to be $10 minus 20.
Exactly. Champion was the cheap clothing brand at Target for such a long time. Now they cost twice as much without any increase in quality or style, in my opinion.
Seriously, there was a time not too long ago when I was in school where Champion was seen as poor kid clothes. Now I see kids today wearing it and saw how much the price has skyrocketed since I bought them.
All types of what was traditionally poor people food. Pork belly, oxtails, etc. All the things that used to be cheap because they were considered to be the trash parts. Now that people realize how delicious they can be, it's driven the price up.
Pork belly used to be so much more affordable. It's a true shame how much it jacked up in price.
Skirt steak or whatever cut it is they use to make fajitas. Used to be cheap, now it's more expensive than other cuts of steak, last I saw it, anyhow.
Thrift stores.
Did you know about something called ThriftCon? People fly out to a convention center to buy vintage stuff, lol.
Rich people didn't ruin thrift stores. The TV shows like Storage Wars and Pawn Stars ruined thrifting. It used to be awesome to go out thrifting, like a treasure hunt. You stood a solid chance of getting something awesome for very cheap. Flea markets were the bomb. You go there with $20 and leave with a ton of crazy random poo. Then those shows came out and everyone decided their decades-old poo was going to buy them a yacht or something. Now most people see something they own and don't want, look online to see how much going for and put it on Facebook or Craigslist for twice that amount. Flea markets are doing the same thing, just in person. If they aren't selling overpriced second-hand trash, they are selling overstock poo by the truckloads. Any second-hand shops like used bookstores, yard sales, or thrift shops are havens for money-hungry idiots with smartphones moving through the stores looking for anything remotely cool, Googling a price, and throwing it in a cart if they can make more than $2 off it. They go throw it in their own second-hand store or try to sell it online and end up sitting on all these cool things with no buyers because no one in their right mind wants to buy a shirt without a sleeve just because it was made in 1992 and has a faded Mario on it.
Mexican food, especially simple stuff like tacos and burritos. It used to be the cheap option, especially where I live as there's a huge Hispanic population and lots of great cheap Mexican takeout places. Then all of a sudden tacos became trendy and now places with $5 plus tacos exist and everything went up in price pretty quickly.
Stopped and got my wife her favorite dish from the local Mexican place. $22 for just steak fajitas. Rice and beans with a side. No drink, nothing extra. $22 effing dollar. I am just going to learn to make it at home.
Avocados have become so popular that the locals can no longer afford them. https://asparagusmagazine.com/the-story-of-avocado-deforestation-irrigation-farmer-health-mexico-organic-3B3922568550e.
I mean, that has a lot to do with the fact that cartels took over. https://www.latimes.com/world-nation/story/2019-11-20/mexico-cartel-violence-avocados.
Apparently this is happening with quinoa as well. It's 10x the price of wheat and many poor people who traditionally ate it as part of their normal diet in Peru and Bolivia can't afford it now. The high demand is benefiting some farmers but not the urban poor.
Trucks, $80,000 for a truck is nuts.
Read that as $80,000 for truck nuts.
Affordable housing.
There are so many wealthy people from the city buying up cheap homes where I live simply to rent them to other wealthy people from the city on Airbnb. People can't afford to live here anymore, but most of the homes are empty 6 months out of the year.
No poo. I bought mine for $155,000 4 years ago. The low inventory of my market has driven the price up to the point where I couldn't afford my own house today. As of today on Zillow there are 0 homes for sale in my neighborhood or the surrounding ones. Chicken wings. Used to be the cheapest part of the bird.
Second-hand shopping. There's nothing worse than going into a completely harvested op shop and not being able to find anything in your size, of good quality because hipsters came and raided the place and sold everything at a 150% markup on their effing Depop account.
Or the shop themselves cut out the middleman and sell all the decent to good stuff on auction sites while they fill their stores with broken shoes and washed out H&M t-shirts.
Football was working man's game. My dad took me and my cousin to games every week home and away. This is beyond many now.
Carhartt clothing.
Everybody wants to wear Carhartt clothing but nobody wants to do Carhartt work.
Shopping at Goodwill is on its way. Just the other day, a pack of rabid teenage girls who were clearly dropped off in a minivan, and were all wearing name brand stuff, tore my local Goodwill apart. It was astounding to watch. It was like a bunch of seagulls ransacking a picnic. It's hard to be mad at that kind of thing because they're just enjoying themselves. But man, if I don't miss grabbing 15 plus clothing items for under $10. At least Thursday is $1 tag day.
Cheap foods, donuts, cupcakes, hamburgers, wings, that have all been given the foodie treatment and went from good cheap eats to gourmet pricing without a corresponding increase in quality.
The funniest one was the offal movement of a few years ago. The ultimate, are rich people really overpaying for pig-ass nows?
I'm sure it's not just foodie culture but rising cost of living. If you look into it, older establishments are usually offering cheaper food while the new ones have to charge higher prices to break even and cover the high startup costs. Well, if you're a new donut shop and you're close to downtown and you have to pay 3 times the rent as the old school donut shop that's on the outskirts of the city, you're going to have to charge 3 to 4 times as much for a donut. Nobody wants to pay $3 for a basic donut. But dress it up and market it as gourmet and have great customer service and you're bound to find hordes of fools who will buy them. I think the free market gears toward gourmet for that reason, because old school cheap dives can't afford the startup costs.
I don't disagree, but it feels like a rising tide raises all boats, where people get used to seeing $3 for a donut, so the places in the outskirts raise their prices because why the hell not? And now you live in $3 Donutburg.
Tybee Island, GA, aka the Redneck Riviera, used to be a place where one could get a house close to the beach for a relatively low price, until rich movie stars started buying there.
Basically everything. If it's popular with the poor, rich people will eventually find a way to take it over so they can turn a tidy profit.
Food that was cooked out of necessity. Chinese dumplings or pot stickers, for example, was a way to stretch out meat rations over an extended amount of time. A pound of meat can be quickly consumed by a family of 5, but if you wrap small portions of that meat with carrots, cabbage, and virtually any vegetable in dough and either boil it or fry it, you can satiate the entire household for a longer period of time. When rich people started making it, basically with the same ingredients, the tone of the dish changed. Before, it was consumed because hard decisions had to be made to make it through a rough period. Now, at places like Fats, a set of 5 dumplings will set you back about $15 and served as an appetizer to $100 or more meal, giving the illusion that you're eating some ballin'-ass dumplings when in reality, it's just dumplings.
The same can be said for every carb, really. Why is Mexican food wrapped in tortillas and stuffed with beans, rice, and vegetables? Because those carnitas are expensive, so we're packing it in cheap stuff to make it stretch. Why is Indian food served with naan, roti, or over rice? Because grains are cheaper than meats. Italian pasta, French bread, pierogies, cornbread, mashed potatoes, fries, chips, all just a way to combine the cheapest starch that can be obtained in the area with whatever protein is available. Edit. If you want to be the 12th person to mention that Indian food can be vegetarian, please be my guest. The argument still holds, just replace meat with eggs, yogurt, or cottage cheese. The point is meals are built around an expensive ingredient, adding a cheaper ingredient to complement and flesh it out. Protein and fat tend to be more expensive than carbohydrate, so it usually works out with grains supplementing meat. It's only very recently that fatty plant production has scaled up to be able to theoretically meet this demand in most of the world.
Taking junky old cars and fixing them up is a hobby. Rich people discovered they could buy up loads of potentially very worthwhile project cars for not much, restore them to a level of unobtainable quality and price which drove the price up. Now everyone knows what they have, eyeroll.png, and holds out for the big buyers instead of the neighbor down the street. They turned a hobby into a billion-dollar industry and entertainment conglomerate so they can sell the cars to other rich people, since few people can afford a $200,000 restored Mustang or GTO or whatever it is.
Vegan food. When it became a trend, the label vegan made it 50% more expensive. There was a huge scandal in the late 2000s when it was revealed most pizza shops didn't use real cheese, because plant-based was cheaper. Today vegan cheese 200% compared to normal cheese.
Burning Man.
The outdoors. So many places used to be difficult to get to, required some level of toughness and grit just to see. More and more people argue that they are entitled to see these places without that, and they're flooding in, paving roads, cramming parking lots full, and trampling some of the most pristine, delicate, untouched areas of the world. I'm not trying to gatekeep these places, but nature sure was.
I think a lot of that is Instagram too.
Classic cars.
It absolutely breaks my effing heart that I'll never be able to own a 68-70 Dodge Charger because it costs like $50,000 completely restored. Now my second attainable classic car would be a first-gen Toyota Celica, and I just hope it's not incredibly jacked up because from the looks of current market prices here in my country, they're hiking really fast. Edit. I know a majority of you talked about restoring a classic yourselves instead of purchasing a completely restored one. Trust me, I really would if I live in the US, but I live in a Southeast Asian country where automotive laws are notoriously picky. I'd certainly be happy to fab up a rusted Charger of my own, but there's a lot of paperwork and risk involved, and that only covers the import stuff. Not including registering the chassis into the Department of Transportation, certifying it as a vintage car, and other shenanigans like transport damages.
Probably like ramen noodles or McDonald's. Fast food isn't even cheap anymore.
Apparently something on the dollar menu is $1.89.
LMAO, I am not surprised. I was also shocked when things were more than $1 in the Dollar General.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.